2026 is shaping up to be one of the biggest shifts in Medicare that I've ever seen. Premiums are skyrocketing, benefits have been removed, plans in some cases are just completely closing down, and millions of Americans are being forced to rethink their Medicare choices. So in this video, I'm going to break down which plans are the most popular for 2026, and what are the changes affecting those popular plans, and which plans are becoming less popular to help you decide what you should do before it's too late. So at number 5, we have the secret plan that you may have never heard of before, called the High Deductible Plan G. So this plan is the High Deductible Plan G. Really unheard of in many cases because a lot of insurance agents aren't even going to tell you about it. It's the most affordable Medicare supplement out there, but a lot of agents don't talk about it because guess what? It pays very low commissions. But we don't do that here. We tell you about everything. So let's take a closer look at the High Deductible Plan G. The High Deductible Plan G is a Medicare supplement plan. So this is a positive. It is a Medicare supplement. And because it's a Medicare supplement, you can see almost any doctor. There are no networks. So that's another big pro. No networks. With a Medicare supplement plan, as you know, you use Medicare's network. So if you have Medicare's network, you can go to any doctor or any hospital around the country as long as they take original Medicare, which most doctors do, at least the doctors you need to see, right? I mean, which doctors don't take Medicare? In some cases, there might be like pediatricians that don't take Medicare because they don't have very many children with Medicare. But there are some pediatricians that do take Medicare. So if your doctor takes Medicare, that's all you need to know. Do you take original Medicare? Yes. You take my Medicare supplement. So you don't have to worry about that. You also, another pro is that there are no prior authorizations. So I'm going to call it no prior auth. You don't have to get prior authorization when you have original Medicare and a Medicare supplement in most cases. Now, there are some things changing here, so I want to bring this up. In some states in 2026, they're starting a pilot program where, for example, in Washington, or Texas, if you have Medicare, you could need prior authorization for some things. So I won't say it's always no prior auth, but in most cases, no prior authorization. So that's a big plus. And then the ultimate big plus of the High Deductible Plan G is that it is the lowest cost of any Medicare supplement plan. So you can get a Medicare supplement plan at the lowest cost. So because this is a Medicare supplement plan, there are some cons. For example, the con of a Medicare supplement plan, one of the main ones is no drug coverage. You don't have drug coverage with the Medicare supplement plan. You have to get drug coverage separately. And if you don't get drug coverage separately, then you are going to have a penalty. So you've got to get drug coverage separately. That is definitely a con. Here's another con. There is no dental, vision, hearing / perks. So you don't get those extra benefits when you have a Medicare supplement plan. No gym membership, no flex cards, no dental, vision, hearing. Those types of things are not going to come on a Medicare supplement plan. So, that's not going to help you there. Now, there's one other really big downside on a Medicare supplement plan G high deductible that we need to talk about. And this is a really important one because it is how the high deductible gets its name. And that is that you have higher out-of-pocket costs. So this is the big con. You have higher out of pocket. So that means money out of pocket, right? Higher out of pocket costs. This is where the high deductible plan differs from a regular plan G. A regular plan G, you pay your monthly premium and then you pay your Part B deductible. And once you've paid your monthly premium and your Part B deductible, which is very low. I mean, the Part B deductible in 2025 is $257. In 2026 is $288. But anyway, once you've paid your Part B deductible, your Plan G covers everything for the rest of the year. Sounds great, right? But with a high deductible Plan G, it's a little different. You are going to have a lower monthly cost. Think somewhere in the, let's say $50 to $75 range. And by the way, we're using someone, in this example, I'm using someone who's like 65, younger with Medicare. Not, if you're 85, 95, you're going to pay more. But for this monthly cost, we're just going to talk about someone who's approximately 65 years old. Now, you have with this a deductible, and out of pocket. And the deductible in 2025 is $2,870. So This is a deductible, $2,870. You have to pay the $2,870 before your plan kicks in. But what's happened here is you're paying a low monthly cost and a high deductible. And that's good if you're not going to use the plan very much. If you're not planning on using it much, then it works out pretty well. So this gives you the super interesting pros and cons of a high deductible plan G. On the plus side, you get the flexibility of a Medicare supplement plan without the high upfront cost because you have a lower monthly cost. You can go to any doctor, any specialist, any hospital in the country, even hundreds of miles away in other states. Your plan will cover it, as long as that doctor accepts Medicare. Very simple. And if your doctor says that you need a procedure or something like that, your plan will usually cover it, no questions asked, just like Medicare, because on Medicare, the doctor says, you need to have this procedure, and Medicare usually pays for it, with some exceptions in some new states in 2026 that are going to start to have prior authorizations on a few small things. Now, the high deductible plan G has a very low monthly cost. At $50 a month, that's only about $600 a year. That's a lot cheaper compared to a traditional plan G, which of course we're going to get to as we go down the line here. So that can save you a lot of money. But there are two really big downsides. First, if you have a serious illness and you need to see the doctor a lot, you could spend the full $2,870 deductible. Now, remember that Medicare is still paying for you. So Medicare is paying 80%, you're paying 20% until you reach that deductible. So it would take a lot, but you could hit that $2,870 deductible, which would be much more expensive than just having a traditional plan G. And then secondly, the high deductible doesn't cost a lot up front, but it is more expensive than, like a $0 monthly Medicare Advantage plan. And it doesn't cover any prescription drugs. So you don't get prescription drugs, you don't get the extra dental, vision, hearing, extra perks and benefits, etc. that you might see in a Medicare Advantage plan. But if you have your coverage really for access, you can't beat the access of a Medicare supplement plan. So with this said, the high deductible plan is actually increasing in popularity. So I'm going to put a little up arrow here. This is becoming more popular as we go into 2026. More people are beginning to learn about it. Thanks to videos like this where we teach people the truth about the Medicare plans, not just the ones that are paying big commissions and all of that. So anyway, I'm going to touch more on the plans that are going up and down, but now let's move on to the next plan, and the popularity on this next plan is going down. So let's talk about the next plan. At number 4, we have the Medicare Advantage. You're like, wait, I thought Medicare Advantage was getting more popular. Well, yes and no. We have the Medicare Advantage PPO plan. Medicare Advantage PPO plans are actually losing their popularity right now because a lot of them are becoming more expensive, etc. And so let's talk this through. Remember that some people don't want a Medicare Advantage HMO plan because they don't want to be tied to a network. And so they say, let's try to go with the PPO route. With the PPO route, you can go to any doctor in any hospital, in or outside of the network. But when you're in the network, then you pay a lower price. And when you're out of network, you pay a higher price. Well, we are expecting this year to see a big drop in PPO enrollments for 2026. Well, why? Let's take a closer look. First, PPO stands for Preferred Provider Organization, and a lot of people have this because they want to be able to go in and out of network, as I explained. And with this type of Medicare Advantage plan, it's easier for you to see doctors and hospitals outside of your plan's network. So this is different from the very common Medicare Advantage HMO, which covers you only out of network in emergencies, and the rest of the time you have to stay in network. This is the main reason why a lot of people choose the PPO plan. They want a Medicare Advantage plan. They want also flexibility to go out of network and see doctors and hospitals that are out of the network. Now, you could find many PPO plans in 2025 for a $0 monthly premium. In other words, you pay nothing other than your Medicare Part B to have the plan. You have a zero premium for the plan. And instead, you have sort of a pay as you go. So first thing was, monthly cost was low, 0 to, I'll say, low dollars for most of these plans. But when you go to the doctor, you're going to pay. You're going to pay co-pays when you go to the doctor. And if you're admitted, there's like daily co-pays in a hospital. If you go to have a procedure or something, then you have a co-pay, and it really can start to add up. Now, the co-pays can be pretty low generally if you're in network, but can be very expensive when you're out of network. And I say pretty low, not as low as your typical Medicare Advantage HMO plan. Now, in addition to this, they have maximum out-of-pocket limits. Now, you know, this maximum out-of-pocket on high deductible, $2,870, that's great. Well, on a Medicare Advantage plan that's a PPO, we're typically seeing things that are more like $4,000 on the very low end to, you know, $8,000 for your maximum out-of-pocket on a PPO plan. So much, much higher than if you went with the Plan G, but you're not paying you're paying a $0 monthly premium. So a lot of people like that. Now, what are the pros and cons of having a Medicare Advantage plan? Well, one of the pros is that it usually comes with a lot of extra benefits. And extra benefits are things like dental, vision, hearing, over-the-counter items, you know, flex cards, things that will help you that are sort of related to being healthy but aren't directly, you know, healthcare with your doctor. Gym membership, for example, you know, that's going to help you to be healthy, and it's a real nice thing to have, and it could help you to save on your health costs, but it's not directly healthcare or Medicare. You see what I mean? So that is extra benefits, something that a lot of people look for. But the biggest pro is that you can see any doctor. So, you know, I'll say any doctor, any hospital. So any doctor or hospital is available to you when you have the PPO plan. Another really big pro of a Medicare Advantage PPO plan, at least most of them, is that they include drug coverage. And this is a big deal because drug coverage can be quite expensive to get on your own, or can have really expensive co-pays, etc. And typically it's better when it's with a Medicare Advantage plan. So this is a big pro. But what are the cons? There are some really big cons to PPO plans in 2026. In fact, one of the biggest one is that lots of these plans are closing. And there are a lot of plans, PPO plans, that are just completely going away. In fact, we have 2 million people in 2026 that had a plan in 2025, and their plan won't be available next year. 2 million people. Most of those are Medicare Advantage PPO plans. And if they're not closing, a lot of them are losing benefits. So they're getting more expensive because it has the in and out of network opportunity. You can go to any doctor or hospital. It's harder for insurance companies to control the costs on these. And so when the costs start to go up, then you start to lose benefits because the insurance company can't afford to offer as many benefits. Many of these plan cuts are from PPOs. There are some that are for Medicare Advantage HMOs. But man, it's a lot worse than last year. It's the worst that we've seen in the history of Medicare Advantage. Now, if you're someone who's on a Medicare Advantage plan, I strongly advise you to read your annual notice of change letter because your plan could be closing, or it could be becoming a lot worse. It could be losing benefits next year, and you really need to know that. But if you're not in a PPO, you should be aware that these plans are declining right now, and it's kind of been this ebb and flow of the PPO plan. I've been helping people with Medicare for 15 years, and I've seen the PPO thing come in and out. It's like, oh wow, PPOs are really great. Oh no, PPOs are terrible. Oh, here they're great again. So right now, we are on a downward trend with PPOs. But in some cases, PPOs are still around, so you can call our team using the number on your screen, and you can talk about plans in your area, but PPOs are nowhere nearly as popular as they were a few years ago, last year, etc. But while PPOs are fading, there is another Medicare supplement plan that's not really trending upward or downward. It's kind of staying steady, so let's take a look at that next. At number 3, we have the Medicare Supplement Plan N. So we're going to call it, this is the MedSup, that's short for Medicare Supplement Plan N. What's happening with the Plan N? Well, it's pretty much staying level. That's what we're seeing right now is kind of the MedSup Plan N is staying level. The Medicare Supplement Plan N is cheaper than the very popular Medicare Supplement Plan G. However, there are some downsides to this plan, so let's take a look so that you can decide if you can stomach the trade-offs between a Medicare Supplement Plan N and a Supplement Plan G. Now, we're going to say a monthly cost on a Medicare Supplement Plan N if you're turning 65 is somewhere around $150 in most places. but it can go up to as high as maybe $300 if you're living in New York or somewhere like that. So let's say $150 to $300. Now, when we look at the monthly supplement plan for someone 65, you say, okay, that's pretty manageable for some people and just totally out of, the realm for others. It just depends on what type of an income you're living on in retirement. But across the board, you're going to find that the Plan N is generally, let's say, $20 to $30 a month less than the Plan G. So you're saving somewhere around $240 to $360 a year if you choose the Plan N instead of the Plan G. Now, historically, the Plan N's rate increases are also lower than the Plan G's rate increases. The Plan G's rate increases have been running around 10%, while the Plan N is running around 7%. And by the way, these increases just kill me because these used to be 3, 4, 5%. For years and years, we had 3 to 5% rate increases a year. Now we're seeing 10 plus on a regular basis. And I talk about that and explain much more about Plan G versus Plan N in another video, which you're welcome to check out if you want to learn more. But in a nutshell, Plan N is not only cheaper, but it has rate increases that are generally lower than the Plan G. However, when you enroll in a Plan N, there are some things, particularly 3 things that you need to know about that you're going to pay out of pocket. And the first is the Part B deductible. And in 2025, the Part B deductible is $257. But in 2026, it's $288 is the Part B deductible. And you have to pay that $288 before your plan kicks in. Now with the Plan N, you also have to pay every time you visit the doctor or go to the emergency room. So for a doctor, it's $20, and for the ER, it's $50. So you're going to pay $288 deductible plus $20 to see the doctor, $50 to go to the ER. Now if you're seeing a doctor every day for a week, that's already an extra $140 a week, which can potentially wipe out any savings that you had going with the Plan N instead of the Plan G in the first place. Now finally, and this is a big one, you have to pay excess charges. So the excess charges are 15%. And that means that some doctors can charge you 15% more than Medicare, and your supplement won't pay it. You have to pay it. Now, a lot of doctors don't charge these excess charges. So it's a rare thing, but no matter how rare it is, it does happen. And it has happened to people that I know and people that I have advised. And so you have to take that into consideration. If you have a big $10,000 bill, 15% is a lot of money. You're really adding to that $1,500. And if you have a $100,000 bill, it's $15,000. You really have to think about, do you want to face excess charges? Now, one study showed that about 2% of doctors can charge excess charges because a doctor can't just choose to do it. They have to fit into a certain category of they accept Medicare, but they didn't sign up for Medicare assignment. So it's a very complicated thing, but in simplifying it, most doctors have accepted Medicare's rates. But some doctors can take Medicare but didn't accept Medicare's rates, and that's the 2% of doctors. But let me tell you something. The place that I have seen it often happen is places you don't expect, like an anesthesiologist at a hospital, right? So it is an important thing. Okay, so now let's talk about the pros and cons. The pro of a Medicare Supplement Plan N is that it's a Medicare supplement. No network. You have no prior authorization. And people love not being told no, with the exception of those states that are adding some prior auth. People love not being told what to do with their prior authorization. I also talked about how it has lower increases. Instead of the rates going up as rapidly as a Medicare Supplement Plan G, the rate increases are lower with this. So that is also a positive. But on the risk side, the big risk is excess charges. If you get excess charges, it will more than wipe out any savings that you've ever had, significantly wipe that out. Now, it does have the same cons as the Plan G. There's no extra benefits, so no extras. You also have, no perks like dental, vision, hearing, etc. And then the last downside is that, like the other one, there is no drug coverage. So it doesn't cover you for your prescription drugs. And not having drug coverage and having to buy that separately is a downside because it's much more expensive to get it through a standalone prescription drug plan. So those are the pros and cons. I mean, it's a little cheaper than a Medicare Supplement Plan G. You do have to have some out-of-pocket costs, the $288 Part B deductible, 20 for ER, 20 for doctor, 50 for ER, excess charges, potential exposure. On the pro side, like I said, it's a Medicare supplement, so you've got no network, for the most part, no prior authorization. It has lower increases than the Plan G, and then on the downside, excess charges, no extra benefits, and no drug coverage. So that kind of is the summary of the Medicare Supplement Plan N. Now let's talk about the second most popular Medicare plan type, and we are talking about the Medicare Supplement Plan G. So we've got a Med Sup, the short for Medicare Supplement, Plan G. What is happening with the Medicare Supplement Plan G? Well, guess what? It is actually becoming more popular. And the reason why the Medicare Supplement is increasing in popularity is because the Medicare Advantage PPO plans are going down, and those people are moving somewhere, right? So the Medicare Supplement Plan G actually is becoming more popular, and it is the benchmark for Medicare Supplement plans. It's the plan that best showcases the strengths and the weaknesses, but mostly the strengths of a Medicare Supplement plan. So let me show you everything that you need to know about this plan. But before I do, let me just jump in and say that if you're finding this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you want to see more detailed Medicare plan comparisons like this, hit subscribe, because we have a lot of fresh content coming out all the time. And the stuff that we do and the information that we provide, honestly, it's not being seen by enough people. So if you like and subscribe, it will get to more people. So help us out there. Okay, so let's talk about the Medicare Supplement Plan G. The first thing that you need to know about the Plan G is that it's the most expensive plan that you can get if you... I mean, there is the Plan F for people who had Medicare before 2020, but for most people, it's the most expensive plan that you can get. So, you know, we're talking at 65, you're probably looking at something about $175 to, you know, as high as even maybe $400, depending, you know, if you're in New York. New York is always the most expensive. So that really can add up. I mean, it's an extra $2,000 a year practically compared over your Medicare, right? So it's definitely not cheap. And by the way, it starts right there, but it goes up. So it's expensive, but the reason why people love this is because the only out-of-pocket cost that you have with this is your Part B deductible. Remember, next year in 2026, it's going to be $288. That is all you spend for your health care. Once you pay $288 out of pocket, it doesn't matter how many times you go to the hospital, how many times you seek serious treatment, even if it's cancer treatment, you don't pay anything else. There are no copays when you see the doctor like there are with the Plan N. There are no risk of excess charges. The Plan G covers that. There's no high deductible like the high deductible Plan G. There's no maximum out of pocket like you have on a Medicare Supplement, a Medicare Advantage Plan PPO, because your maximum is just $288. That's why this is the gold standard for Medicare Supplement plans. And I often tell people, if you're making a decision about Medicare Supplement plans and you want to have the coverage of a Medicare Supplement plan, then go with the gold standard, right? That's the reason you have a supplement plan, is to have those types of benefits. So they are super low out-of-pocket costs outside of what you pay for your premium. Now, aside from that, Medicare Supplement plans will allow you, as we talked about, to see pretty much any doctor. So again, it's a Med Sup. You can see any doctor because there's no network. You can see any hospital pretty much nationwide. You have no prior auth, with the exception of the trial program that's happening in 5 states in 2026, where there will be some prior auth on original Medicare, but generally you will have no prior authorizations. So the Plan G, I mean, those are big pros. Now, what about the downsides? Well, the most obvious downside is that this is the most expensive plan. You know, I'm going to give this 3 or 4 dollar signs. It is the most expensive plan, but you get a lot for it, of course, but that is a downside. It's expensive. Now, in addition to that, you tend to have larger rate increases on this plan than a Plan G or a Plan N or a high deductible Plan G. So it's expensive and it gets more expensive, right? Also, you have no drug coverage. We've talked about this on all the Med Sups, drilling it in. No drug coverage and no extras. So no dental, vision, hearing, Sometimes sometimes the Medicare supplement will have a little extra something, maybe a gym membership or something, but mostly you're going to get no extra benefits with that. So, those are the downsides. But what you're paying for with the Medicare Supplement Plan G is access to doctors. Honestly, that's what you're paying for. And to not have to worry about things like prior authorizations. Now, I don't want to underplay the cost. The cost can be a lot. In fact, recently, we had a client call us in their area, because it depends on the area that you live, and they had a 22% rate increase on their Medicare Supplement Plan G from 25 to 2026. So there can be large rate increase, 22%. You think about that, going up 22%. Everything's getting more expensive right now, and it certainly is true of Medicare supplements too. But again, you're paying for access, you're paying for any doctor, you're paying for any hospital, and that's going to cost money. It just does. So I'm not saying that the Plan G is the way that everyone should go. I'm not saying that the Plan G is too expensive and it's a bad idea. I think if you can afford it, it's a great option, especially if you're concerned about getting a serious illness and being able to go to premier clinics, the cancer centers and everything like that. If you're concerned about having access to the most premier level of the healthcare system, then you've got to pay for that. And the way you pay for that is get a Medicare supplement plan. However, if you need to seriously consider your retirement finances, and if you're in a tight fixed budget, then you need to consider, is a Plan G too expensive? You don't want to have a situation, which we have often found, where people are in a trade-off, where they say, I'm paying as much for my Plan G as I'm paying for my supplemented rent, and I can't afford to have pet food or get groceries, or I'm cutting my pills in half. My doctor said I should take one a day, but I'm taking half so that I can stretch it out because I can't afford to fill my prescriptions. If you're in a situation like that, then you should not, in my opinion, sacrifice your health on one side to have access to premier clinics on the other side that are in another state. Instead, focus on the things that you can control in the area you live in. And that's what brings us to the most affordable and by far the most popular plan today, which is the Medicare Advantage HMO plan. So Medicare Advantage HMO is by far the most popular plan in Medicare today. And between the Medicare Advantage HMO and the Medicare Advantage PPO, over half of the people with Medicare have chosen this route, and it's because they live on fixed incomes. If everyone had access to $400 that they could spend on a Medicare Supplement Plan G, I think most people would do that. By the way, when I explain that $400, I haven't even told you that you're also going to pay for a Medicare Part D plan, a drug plan, right? I've sort of inferred it, but yeah, if everyone could afford that, they probably would do that. But most people in retirement are living on a fixed income. And so they need to know that their dollar is going a long way, that it's being stretched out, right? Now, some agents here on YouTube, especially on YouTube, they really bash the Medicare Advantage HMO plan. They say that you should never do it. They talk about the downsides, which I am going to talk about the downsides too, but they blow them way out of proportion. And they say that no one should do that. And they scare everybody out of Medicare Advantage. And listen, be realistic about what your budget is. If you can afford a Medicare Supplement Plan G, great. You should do that. We will help you do it. But if you can't, then there are good options for you in many cases on the Medicare Advantage HMO side. And it is by far the most popular plan for a reason. In fact, there are more people in the Medicare Advantage HMO plan than all of these other plans combined. If you put all these plans together, there are more people in the Medicare Advantage HMO than all of these plans combined. And guess what? It is still getting more popular, still going up. Especially, like I said, with Medicare Advantage going down, people are going to make a decision. Do I go with the Medicare Supplement? Do I go with the Medicare Advantage plan? And many are going to go to the Medicare Advantage HMO. Now, as I said, there are some $0 PPO plans. Almost all Medicare Advantage plans are $0, but there are some that do have monthly premiums above $0. So it's $0 to a low dollar monthly premium. And HMO plans, the vast majority of people who are enrolled in an HMO plan, I'm talking like 90+%. Don't quote me on the statistics, but I've sat in many of these meetings where they explain them, and I wish I could remember them all, right? But it's like 90+% are in a $0 monthly premium. Now, what happens if you get admitted to the hospital? Well, you have copays. What happens if you see a doctor? You have copays. Some plans have a $0 copay. Some plans have a high copay. It just depends on what's available in your area. What about the maximum out-of-pocket, or the out-of-pocket limit? Well, depending on where you live, and it's really important to think that where you live matters a lot. So in some cases, we have seen out-of-pocket costs lower, at like $750 annually, up to as high as, say, on average, maybe $6,000 might be the high side. But like I said, we have some in some areas that are very, very low, $750, some that are very high, and then your average is in that range of $3,000 to $4,000. Aside from being the cheapest option, HMO plans are also the most benefit rich in the market today. Medicare Advantage plans can be extremely competitive in this space. And in some areas, insurance companies are constantly trying to one-up each other. And so they add more benefits, they lower their costs, they add more extra benefits. And that's why these plans have benefits on the pro side, like dental, vision, hearing. Sometimes they have flex cards. They often have gym memberships. They can have things like over-the-counter coverage, right? So they will cover all those things, and not all plans have all those things. And the area that you live in really matters. In some areas, you won't find any of that. In other areas, you will find all of it. It really just depends. The other thing with the Medicare Advantage HMO is that almost all of them, and you should, if you need drug coverage, you have to choose one that has this. Almost all of them have drug coverage. I'm going to put a circle around this because this is really important. The drug coverage that you get on a Medicare Advantage HMO plan is the most comprehensive drug coverage of any of these. If you have a high deductible plan G, a MedSup plan N, or a MedSup plan G, you are not going to have drug coverage as good as they have in Medicare Advantage HMO as a generalization. And if you look across the entire country, the place where you get the most drug coverage is in a Medicare Advantage HMO, just speaking broadly. So those are the pluses. What about the downsides? Well, the downsides are going to remind you of the PPO plans, right? You are going to have networks. This is a problem if it's a problem. And what I mean by that, it's a problem if it's a problem, is that if your doctor is not in the network, or if the network isn't large enough because you're in a rural area or something like that, and you're living, where there just aren't as many doctors, that's a problem. And you may say, based on where I live, it doesn't make sense for me to be in a Medicare Advantage plan because I don't have access to enough doctors. I need to be in a Medicare supplement plan so that I can see doctors. In other areas, the networks can be very robust and it's okay. But no matter how robust the network is, if your doctor isn't in it, or if your doctor decides to move out of it, that can be a problem and can be very frustrating. So that's definitely a big downside. Another big downside that people complain about is prior authorization. It's been a big thing in the news lately that some insurance companies were overusing prior authorization to prevent people from having procedures that they needed in Medicare Advantage HMOs. It can be a problem. Now, is it always a problem? No, it's not always a problem. If something is medically necessary and your doctor submits the evidence that the treatment is needed, then it will be covered. If it isn't, you can dispute it, and you can take it all the way to Medicare and say that it needs to be covered for you, right? There is a process. But that process, first of all, not very many people have to go through that process. But if you do, it's ugly and it's long. So I don't want to sit here and say, oh, it's all roses and flowers and everything, rainbows and butterflies and everything's great over on the HMO world. No, you know what you're getting. When you go that route, you're getting a lot of extra benefits. You're having a very low cost, but you're giving something up for that. And if you're not comfortable giving that up, that's fine. Don't give that up. Pay the money to have a Medicare supplement plan so that you don't have to worry about that. And that's really the big choice in Medicare. The biggest choice in Medicare is, are you going with Medicare Advantage or are you going with a Medicare supplement plan? And it's really important to understand that if you're in a Medicare Advantage plan, you might not be able to move to a Medicare supplement plan later. So some people say, oh, I'll just take this until I get sick and then I'll move to this. Well, in a lot of states that doesn't work. In New York, it works, but the reason it works is because they charge you, as we say in my world, out the wazoo. So it costs a lot of money. And if they're charging you that much money, then yeah, you can move to it whenever you want. But in most states, you can't move, and that's why the price is lower. And you need to decide that you're going to do that up front, and then you won't have to worry about it. That's a really, really important consideration. One more thing I want to tell you is that if you're in one of these Medicare Advantage PPOs that is disappearing this year, if you're one of those 2 million people that's losing your Medicare Advantage plan, that could be your guaranteed right to switch to a high deductible Plan G or a Medicare Supplement Plan G. You would not be able to go to a Plan N without answering health questions, and that's part of the reason why it doesn't have as high of increases as the Medicare Supplement Plan G. So those are a few things to consider. So now that we have seen these 5 plans, these are the 5 most popular plans in Medicare today. The high deductible Plan G, the Medicare Advantage PPO, which is losing popularity, the Medicare Supplement Plan N that's staying steady right now, the Plan G that has been increasing in popularity, and the Medicare Advantage HMO, which has also been increasing in popularity and growing the most. Out of all these plans, it's the Medicare Advantage HMO that has been growing the most. So if you want a deeper look into all of these plans, that's what we do here at PlanFit. We're always working on how these fit together, who's a good fit for these, and explaining them to people who call us. So give my team a call. No one here works for commissions. All of my team do their job to find the right plan for your needs, even if it doesn't pay anything on enrollment, because that's what we coach them to do, and they are paid salaries. So they don't get incentivized to move you around or to try to convince you to go with the Medicare Supplement Plan G. By the way, this Medicare Supplement Plan G pays the highest commissions. So you should already know that. If you go on YouTube and you see that every video is telling you, you should join a Medicare Supplement Plan G, don't you already know that? It pays the highest commissions, right? The Medicare Advantage HMO and the Medicare Advantage PPO, they pay the second highest commissions up front. If you stay with the plan for a long time, then the Medicare Advantage HMO and PPO pay the highest commissions overall if you're in the plan for like 20 years or something. But anyway, I'm just doing that to illustrate that what our team does is they help you figure out what's best for you and compare all of your options. We took commissions out of the equation for them. No one on our team gets paid commissions. And so if the best fit for you is to go with the high deductible Plan G, you won't find an insurance agent in the world that is teaching you about the high deductible Plan G, but we will help you enroll in it if it's the best thing for you. So, okay, that's it. If you want a more head-to-head comparison between the 2 types of the Medicare, the 2 big, types, the most popular, Plan G and HMO, then check out my next video.